If you're tired, sit down, lay down, whatever it is, it can wait.
Welcome back to the Vibe with Kai podcast presented by Sucre. I gotta tell you, I am so pumped for y'all to hear today's conversation. But first, a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, Sucre. They collaborated with me to create a new custom fragrance called Why Did I Walk Into This Room? It features notes of cherry pie, cinnamon, and acceptance. Honestly, it is a gender neutral love letter to the ADHD community. So make sure you go check them out and go grab a bottle for yourself at sucrebay.com. My friends, today I am sitting down with the incredibly talented Chester Gregory. Yes, he is my personal friend, but you might know him as a Broadway legend who originated the role of Sweaty Eddie in Sister Act the musical and from his time playing Berry Gordy in Motown the musical. But today we are talking about the man behind the curtain. Chester recently opened up about being newly diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. In this episode, we dive deep into what it is exactly like to mask your neurodivergence while performing under the brightest lights of Broadway. Also, we talk incredibly real about navigating profound grief while in the public eye, learning the difference between grieving and mourning, and how he stepped into his new purpose as a wellness architect to build a supportive community called the Cypher. Chester drops so much wisdom about honoring this phase of your life that you're in right now, rather than fighting it. Also, a quick heads up before we start. Right in the middle of our interview, we did a segment called Reverse the Mic, where Chester puts me in the hot seat and gets to ask me very personal questions about my life, including questions that he asked me about my dating life and the legacy that I want to leave behind. That full segment is exclusive for my Patreon and Facebook subscribers. If you are not subscribed, this episode is going to skip right over it. I got to tell you, if you're not subscribed, you're missing out. For just $5 a month, you get exclusive access to that Reverse the Mic segment, my entire ADHD deep dive library series, and private behind the scenes looks at my daily life and mental health journey that I don't post on social media platforms. So without further ado, let's get right into this amazing conversation that I had with my good friend, Chester Gregory. I want to welcome my friend Chester to the Vibe today. This has been a long time coming. And here's the thing. I want to pull back the curtain for all of the watchers and the listeners out there, because you and we actually met because virtually, because you had reached out to me wanting to do a funny video about introversion, right? And like we had already been like following each other, and I said yes immediately. I'm like, oh hell yeah, I think that would be really cool. But here's the funny part, and we've talked about this. At the exact same time that you and I were collabing on that video, at the time I was directing a production of Sister Act the musical, and I had no idea that you were quite literally you originated the role of Sweaty Eddie, right?
Yeah, yes, indeed. Yeah, for Broadway. Yep. Yeah.
No idea. I had no idea. And so like I'm like, oh, this Chester's guy is pretty cool. And I didn't find out until after the show had closed that you had originated one of the lead characters in that show. And which is great, but it made me feel like I was the worst musical theater person of all time.
Oh my God.
Like, of all time. I'm happy to like always talk with like a black actor, especially that embraces the theater world. What's that been like? Because you've gotten some really, really cool opportunities as a theatrical actor. What is like, this is not even me asking for the audience, this is for me. What is it like to be a Broadway actor?
It has truly been a life-changing experience. I got my start in the Chicagoland area doing Black theater. And so by the time, Broadway started to happen, I was already kind of anchored in just the community that Black theater provides. And so when I would come and, I had the wonderful opportunity to originate roles and stuff like that, I'd be like, hey, ain't gonna do that. Oh, no. Ain't gonna do that there. You know what I mean? And so like, for the most part, the creative teams, they were very receptive because I was very sensitive to like, especially in a couple of shows where I play, the black sidekick, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, I said, okay, all right, So, but most times they were very receptive to, my, convictions as a black actor, So yeah, but it's been, and I think now that, it's been a few years since I've done shows and I've been seeing like just the response from people saying that, oh, we see the work that you've done and we see how you stood up for having like a certain level of integrity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just really, a dream come true. I did I did it with those things in mind, but then now to see it
Mhm.
come back, it's just still like, wow, you know?
Right, right. This question is like we're gonna get into the really good stuff soon, but I have to ask this question for all of the theater people that are out there. Um, how difficult was it for you to do that key change every night in I Could Be That Guy? Was it hard? Like I could spread my wings and fly. Like was that like did you hit it every night or were there some nights where you're like, oh well, here goes nothing?
So the way that kinda happened is, so, okay, so, I did the, the high note the first time
Yeah,
in the, like, the final reading, and I had never done that before, and it actually
yeah,
happened because I was a little bit congested that day, and, when you
yeah,
get a little bit congested, that
yeah,
top part of your voice is the first
yes.
part to go. I said,
Yep,
"Okay, well, forget it, we're
yep.
gonna go for the gusto." So I was like, "Ah," and I was like, "What the helly?" You know what I mean? And so then that became sort of like the norm. So when I
Yes.
didn't feel like doing it, I was like, "Oh, I gotta do it again," you know what I mean? So, like but, like, so sometimes I would do it as written, but for the most part, I did that because, it became, just a thing that people
It's
would
like a thing. It's like it's a that's what people like the people that are familiar with the song, and, like, there's gonna be a bunch of people that are watching this, like, right now being like, "What the hell are they talking about?" But
Right, 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 like,
there's a
yeah.
song that your character, Sweaty Eddie, sings that I think is one of the best songs in the show. It comes out of nowhere, and it like, Eddie gets to show off his vocals and his dancing,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
great,
little
and the
this, little
best part
action. Right.
yeah, and the best part about that is, and this is a spoiler alert, but screw it because the show's been out for forever now. But
Yeah.
in the middle of your song, you have not just one costume change, you have two costume changes, right? So like you're dressed as a cop, then they rip off your clothes and you're in your disco outfit, and then they rip off the disco outfit and you're back in your cop off outfit.
Yeah.
Did that go perfect every night?
For the most part, there were a couple of, disasters that happened, but, they just rip it, really quickly. It was
Yeah.
like the costume team, they were like just brilliant the way they put all that together. So it's all like, of
Mhm.
course, snaps, but the snaps in different
Mhm.
places. So you don't pull off
Yeah.
both parts at the same time. So like,
Yeah.
but there's been a couple of times when disco outfit didn't quite rip. And, I remember Alan H. Green was like, okay, I'm just gonna rip it. And they have to fix it later, like, well, we're gonna rip this mug, So
Oh
yeah.
my god.
For the most part, it went smoothly for the most part.
That's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. And, here's the thing. I wanna set the record straight for all the people that are listening. Um, how often do you catch people off guard who know you as, like the wellness introvert guy on TikTok, only to realize that you have this massive Broadway legacy behind you? Like, does that happen often?
Yeah, it's so compartmentalized the way it happens, and then it's sometimes
Yeah.
like friends like you, like, "Wait a minute, you did this over here?" And
Yep.
so I've been so compartmentalized. I've been terrible at like integrating the two, and so now
Yeah.
I've been. This is going to help me actually integrate and share more of like who I actually
Yeah.
am because I realized like doing the content and stuff like that, personifying the different personality types and signs and all of that, I realized that it
Yeah.
was also another form of me hiding, kind of like imposter
Mhm.
syndrome, where it's like, well, if
Yeah.
I tell them
Yeah.
about me, then I'm going to be worried about how that video performs and all of that. And so, like,
Mhm.
now integrating the two has now been this next stage of the journey where
Yeah.
taking the pressure off, seeing if the video is going to perform well, but just really just sharing my
Mhm.
journey with people and letting it go from
Right.
there.
Right. And it's funny because a lot of times, like, I don't talk about me as a performer or a director a lot at all on my platform. And, like, right now I'm playing Bobby in Company, and I'll, like, share, like, I won't post a clip, but I'll, like, put it on my story, like, a clip of me, like, singing or whatever, and people are like, "You sing?" Meanwhile, they
Yes.
have no idea I went to school for this.
Yeah.
Like, I went to school for it. I love theater, like, that is my background. I direct musicals all the time. I'm
I've been
directing A
enjoying
Bronx
those
Tale.
clips. You sound
Like
great, look great, everything. Come on.
thank you, man. I'll try, I try.
Actor and the
It
singer.
it scratches that itch, man. But it's funny because we both of us identify as introverts. And I think that
Absolutely.
sometimes people look at us as performers sometimes and they're like, "You're not an introvert. You're not an introvert."
Yeah,
But we are because I think people misunderstand the definition of introversion because introversion is just about energy. It's not about being shy. I'm not shy. I don't think you're shy, right? I think that
I'm a little shy,
like
I'm a little shy, I'm a little
a little
yeah,
shy,
yeah, yeah.
but like it's about energy at the end of the day. And I'm
Absolutely, yeah.
curious, how does an introvert like you survive the energy of performing all the time? And more importantly, how do you survive the energy of social media as a content creator now?
So how I always viewed it, as a child, growing up with the original Superman, Christopher
Yes,
Reeve,
sir. Yes, sir. Rest in peace, my friend.
I always saw, like, I just love how when he operated as Clark Kent, he
Mhm.
was just a part of the everyday activities and
Yeah.
all of that. But then when it was time for him to be Superman, you know what I mean? Boom, Imma show
Mhm.
y'all these blue
Yep.
tights and this cape, and y'all about to get this work, you know what I mean? So I've always viewed, like, living in your purpose that way. So, like, we're
Yeah.
all like Clark Kent. When it's time to
Mhm.
live in your purpose, to do the thing that you were called to do, then you
Yeah.
gotta go full force. So I've always kinda seen it like that. So when it's time for me to, perform or do a piece of, work that I feel would resonate with people, then I just kind of like put on this,
Right.
put on my S, you know what I mean? And then go
Yeah.
for it. And then turn my
Yeah.
back on Clark Kent and can hide and don't nobody talk to me, leave me alone.
And shout out to Christopher Reeve for as from a performer standpoint, you could see and recognize the difference between even his physicality between Clark
Yeah.
Kent and Superman, which I thought was brilliant acting in and of itself. You describe yourself as a wellness architect, which I love. I love that title. If you had to explain that job description to your 10-year-old self, what would you tell the younger version of you about being a wellness architect?
If I'm explaining it to a 10-year-old, then
Mhm,
I think I would just kind of apply what Michael Jackson said, which is
mm,
essentially is just about making sure that you believe in yourself. So a lot of times we'll just, pour into other people and kind of play ourselves second. And then really what it really boils down to is us not trusting ourselves enough, not trusting that we are enough, not trusting, that intuition and all of that. So to the little 10-year-old me, I just say, hey, I'm just here to encourage you to believe in yourself. That's
I
it.
love that. I love that. I love that distinction there, and it's interesting because you mentioned, um, building spaces for other people, right? But I also wanna talk about the space inside your own head for a minute too, because you've been going through your very own mental health journey recently. You mentioned, and I've seen videos, and you and I have talked about this, privately, is being newly diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. Welcome to the neurodivergent family, my friend.
Yay!
Welcome.
We are
this
family.
this is your official initiation interview. Um, for many of us, that diagnosis comes with a mix of relief and grief, I think.
Mhm.
What was the specific moments or struggle that finally made you say, okay, something's up. I need to get this checked out?
It would be like, sessions with my therapist, right? And
Yeah.
so I suspected dyslexia because, I mean, pretty much, my entire life since I wanna say early high school when I would, read and the letters would be jumping around and all of that stuff. I invert words,
Mhm.
letters, and I'm like, oh. But it mainly happened when I had to read out loud, right? So I always suspected dyslexia.
Mhm.
But then, with the final, official diagnosis, I was like, "Okay, got it," and it kinda just made sense, like, pretty much all of my friends are neurodivergent, so, like, when, I shared the news with my friends, nobody was surprised, just
They were
me.
like,
They were like,
"Yeah."
"Yeah, duh." They're like, "You didn't know that?" Like,
They're like,
"I've
"I
been
coulda
telling you
told
that
you
for
that."
20 years. You didn't know that you were,
They're like,
you
"Where's
know,
my copay? I
part of
coulda
the
told you that."
neurodivergent fam?" Yeah, I'm like, "What?" Like, and so, yeah, so I tried to take the test myself a couple of times and didn't quite score high enough. But,
Yeah.
working with my therapist and stuff, she was like, "No, absolutely." You know what I mean? And so, like,
Yeah.
and of course, it's a spectrum, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How did you feel, like, once you finally had it clarified? Like, what went through your head?
I felt great about it
Yeah. Yeah.
because it finally gave me something, that okay, I'm like, okay, great. Like, sometimes when you have like something defined and it's very clear, then you also are armed with the tools of how to navigate and make sense of
Mhm.
things, right? So I always kind of felt kind of like not quite with uh like things like in classrooms and stuff like that and all that was always a struggle.
Mhm.
I was like, how do people sit in this classroom for 8 hours? I thought something was wrong with me. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
now that
sure.
I know that I just perceive the world differently and that's fine. You know what I mean? And I have
Yeah,
these tools now to know that, okay, that's just a part of it. You know what I mean? So
right.
yeah.
I'm really curious because this is something that I have to deal with as a content creator and as a performer. There's a lot of pressure on people like you and I to be on, like, all the time, right? We're just on. And I find that sometimes me being on is me masking, right? Me
Mhm.
masking some of the things that I've had to deal with. So, and when I was younger, I didn't even realize I was doing it. I was just kind of just naturally doing it.
Yeah.
For you, looking back now with this diagnosis, looking back now with your ADHD lens on life, how much of your career, whether it be as a content creator or as a performer, how much of your career was you genuinely performing versus you masking just to fit in an industry that tends to cater towards neurotypical people?
Woo-wee.
I come with the
Oh,
questions.
God.
I come with the questions, my friend.
God. Oh, Lord. I would say a vast majority of my life was spent masking to some degree, with the exception of like, my very, very close friends, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
Who I could just be however I needed to be, you know what I mean? If I didn't want to talk
mhm,
at all and just sit and look, you know what I mean? And
right.
so like, but there's just so many things that I do that I have to alter so that it can present itself a certain way. So, for example, like I listen by like folding my arms like this, you know what I mean? And that's
Mhm.
how I listen. But to the rest of the world, this means I'm closing you out. They even tell you in acting class, this means you're
Ah,
shutting somebody out and all of that stuff. So I have to do this, like opening up like this, just to present, even though it's more work. When people talk to me, oftentimes I look away to listen because sometimes I'm looking at you in your eye, then I'm
I do
thinking
that.
about I'm thinking about too many other things rather than
Yep,
just listen to what you say. But if I'm looking away to the rest of the world, it's like I'm not paying attention to you. And it's like,
yep,
no, I'm actually taking the information in on a much deeper level now. I'm not
yeah,
performing to show you that I'm listening. You know what I mean? So it's been
yeah.
stuff like that the majority of my life. Yeah.
That it's funny you say that because I never thought of that, of, like, the looking away thing, just so you could pay attention
Yeah.
more. Because I naturally do that, like, you and I could be, like, talking somewhere, and I'll be like this. Right, and it looks like I'm looking down at the ground, but really I'm like, my ears just, like, perked up listening, and I'm looking
Uh-huh.
down at the ground because nothing much is happening down there, and if I'm looking straight at you, I'm looking at that and that and that and that, like, I'm, like, taking in not just you, but everything around you, so I'm trying to limit the things that catch my eye sometimes, and I do that by
Exactly.
looking down, and I never thought of that until you just said it.
Yeah. Another
That's
thing that I
interesting.
didn't realize was kind of an ADH thing was the caffeine thing.
Ooh, okay, go on.
So I don't do this anymore. You and I talked about Magic Mind. This is not a paid ad,
Yes.
but what I used to do is I would take a 5 hour energy
Yeah.
an hour before I wanted to wake up.
Interesting.
So I
Okay.
would,
Okay.
I take 5 hour energy, go back to sleep, and then wake up an hour later like, oh, I'm rested. People were like, are you nuts? But I was like, so caffeine doesn't really affect me in that way. It just makes me feel
Yeah.
rested. I can also go right back to sleep after having caffeine.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, 'cause what was that crash like? I would imagine that you would crash at some point during the day, like, when you would get back would you find yourself crashing sometimes?
Well, at that point, I would take two, right? So I would have one like later in the
Mm.
day. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
it was
Yes.
like two a day. Yeah. Yeah.
Disclaimer, not healthy.
Not
Not
healthy.
not
Please don't do that. Yes. Like I've known
don't
Yeah.
Don't do that.
People are taking one and going to the hospital. So I was like,
Yes.
that well, yeah,
That stuff
but
is no joke. That stuff, Monster, like all that stuff, that stuff is
yeah.
no joke, and it works. But
Right.
sometimes
Now,
for us
interestingly, I
ADHD
can never
people,
do
like
yeah, I can never
what
do
was that?
Monster or Red Bull. Whatever's in
Mhm.
that made me feel, like, jittery, but
Oh, yeah.
not 5 hour. It's not a paid ad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're gonna clip it. You just
I
clipped
know,
it,
they're
and
like,
then
"Oh,
they're
cool, we
like,
got" yeah, I'm like, but
"Famous
yeah, but I
Broadway
don't
actor supports 5-hour energy." I
yeah.
love that. You talk about navigating transitions without rushing the healing. I love that. And that is so hard for the ADHD brain because we want the dopamine hit of being fixed immediately, right? We want
Yeah.
that. So, how did you learn to just sit in the messy middle part of a transition without trying to speed through it?
Let me tell you something, my therapist still be getting me together because in my first therapy session, I was like, "Okay, what's wrong with me? I wanna fix it, blah, blah, blah," and she
Yeah.
said, "Alright, slow down." Got a black woman, you know what I'm saying? She's like,
Mhm.
slow down,
Mhm.
there's nothing to fix." I'm like, "Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, that's why we here.
You're
What
like,
what
"I
what?"
have a list of
Go to
things. I have a
somebody
list
else.
of things. Fix me."
Right. And so that is an ongoing process. I'm
Yeah.
still navigating that of, like, saying, "Okay," owning this moment. And I wanna say that, um having so much grief from the loss that I've had in 2025. I've lost, like, a few people that have been close to me. And,
Yeah.
navigating that and really allowing, because also with my wellness group, I I work with them on, just making sure that they own how they feel so you can
Mhm.
process it and work through it. And so I think what helps me stay in those moments of, like, really owning it and allowing the process to happen is that I'm also being accountable to a group of people.
Mm.
So, like every
Mhm.
mentor has a mentee and all that kind of thing. So we all kind of balance each other out. My therapist got
Yeah.
a therapist, you know what I'm saying? My
Yes.
coach got a coach,
Yeah.
and as a coach, it all helps to hold me accountable. So I think the power of community.
Yeah. I wanna dive a little bit deeper into the loss that you spoke of because what I found really interesting is you lost someone deeply important to you while you were still expected to show up both publicly, professionally, personally. I think a lot of us have been forced to work through grief because the bills don't stop no matter what's
Right.
going on. What conversation like what was the conversation that you had with yourself to survive that rough period of your life?
The conversation, whew, I, you know, the conversation just, I think it's an ongoing conversation because I
Sure.
find myself daily still getting used to this alternate timeline, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
someone I've known for 30 years, you know what I mean, who, we were married, divorced, rebuilt a friendship,
Yeah.
um, raised a son, you know what I mean? All of these things, and now there's this new timeline, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so kinda what I'll do now, we're gonna get into some African ancestry. Sometimes I just yell out, "You just gone? You just ain't here no more?" And then,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, uh, I do feel the energy and presence of,
Mhm.
people who have transitioned to the ancestors and things like that. So I do feel
Mhm.
that. So I oftentimes will feel guided by, the people who have passed on. So it's an
Yeah.
ongoing thing. But that initial conversation, my primary concern was talking to my son. And
Mm.
so I wanted to make sure that the family allowed me to talk to him first. And what I
Mhm.
did was I had him, I talked to him separately in a room and I just hugged him and I said, "Hey, okay, so your mom has joined the ancestors." That's
Mhm.
how I told him. You know what I mean? And he said, "What?" He said, "Okay." And my son is also autistic.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
so
How
like,
old was he at this time?
he's 26.
He's 26? Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And he was like, "Okay," and so, like, even though with the ongoing conversations, he continued to say, "My mom is with the ancestors," and things like that. You know what I mean? I knew that
Mhm.
that moment would stick with him for the rest of his life, so I don't wanna come to him and be like,
Mhm.
she dead, she gone, and all this other
Right,
dramatic kind
right,
of stuff. I
yeah,
wanted to kind of give him something
yeah.
that can also anchor him in a way that I felt that she would want to be honored. So yeah.
Right, right. We're often taught, especially as black men. For those of you that are listening in right now, if you haven't caught on, these are two black men talking. If you can't see us, if you couldn't tell already, these are two black men that are speaking to each other. And I think both you and I have grown up being taught that grief is a weakness of sort, or something that we just have to get over. I feel like you had mentioned that you view grief as a teacher, and I think that's such a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. It's really hard to feel that sentiment when we're in the trenches. And so I'm curious, what was the hardest lesson that grief taught you during that time period?
I think the hardest lesson was also something w- that just enriched me as well. So I started to learn the difference between grief and mourning.
Mm,
So grief is just your internal process, right? And how you mourn is how you express that, right? So it
yeah,
can be anything from how you cry and things like that. So me learning that difference, and then also like just finding the balance between her also being a public figure and the way the family
right,
wanted, her represented and stuff like that, finding that balance, but then also being truthful to how I needed to be, allowed me to say, okay, I'm just going to grieve how I need to grieve, and then leave the mourning process to, just kind of let it be what it needs to be and honor how the family wants to present that. So
right,
that was a couple of like tough conversations with the family to make sure that it was like, what they wanted. You know what I mean? So
right.
yeah.
Right. And that season, it forced you to slow down, right? And for someone that is so used to the fast pace of Broadway and the dopamine that you get from performance, because like for people that don't know, the feeling that this is why I love theater more than film and TV, even though film and TV is where the money's at.
Ah,
I love
ah,
right?
right.
But I
Facts.
love theater because there's nothing better than that live audience and that live music that's playing it, and like you're just in there in the moment with people, and we're all just enjoying a thing together. We're not like on our phones, or doing chores around the house while something's playing on TV. Like everybody is invested into the same thing. And that's a big dopamine hit as an
Right.
actor. And Broadway is fast paced. There's always something moving. And the show, like a lot of shows that you've done are fast paced or like constantly moving where you're doing a lot. But you had to slow down, right? So what did slowing down feel like when you were like when you're so used to like run, 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 run? Was it scary to stop running?
So the slowing down is actually happening now.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah,
because it
yeah.
was like, there were all these, several people passed in 2025, but then by the time
Yeah.
that, that she passed, it was like a week before my son's birthday. Then we get
Mhm.
into then we had the, the celebration service. And then we
Yes.
had all the holidays that happened right after
Mhm.
that. Like so October,
Mhm.
November, December. Now the new year, and it's like all of this stuff, right? It was like a like a fast track course on like, all
Yeah.
right, because like when when there's when somebody passes, right, your phone initially blows up from everybody hitting you all at once, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then later on in the year, that grief really starts to hit during that
Yeah.
first wave of holidays and all of that. Here it is all at
Yeah.
the same time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
like slowing down is kind of like happening now a little bit, where it's like, okay, now it's clear and it's like, wow, you know, she's really gone. We're really in this alternate timeline. Okay, all right, all right. How do we continue? What do we do? You know what I mean? And so it's
Sure.
like continuing to breathe and just remember that community, I think is, and
Mhm.
also it just gives me a greater appreciation, not only for the times that we have had, but also the times that we have with people now. You know what I mean? It's just like
Mhm.
we can never be reminded too much about how ephemeral life is. Just
Absolutely.
here today, gone today, not even tomorrow.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I really do appreciate you talking so openly about this and for being vulnerable because I know it's not easy. to talk about this type of thing, plus to talk about your own mental health and family and all of that stuff. And the phrase that comes to mind as we're sitting here talking is the term high functioning, right? We hear that
Mhm.
phrase high functioning a lot, but usually high functioning just means I'm suffering quietly so I don't inconvenience somebody else, right?
Phew.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like I feel like that's what it's really saying. So what does high functioning look like for you when you feel like you're at your lowest point?
High functioning for me is me not taking the time that I need to rest.
Mhm.
And I have learned, at this big age that I got to do it.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
finished a high functioning thing right now, actually. Just having a schedule that was kind of back to back. And I was in North Carolina. There was a winter storm, got stranded there, and then the stress of like
Mhm.
trying to get back and all of that, and
Yeah.
not getting the adequate sleep and rest that I needed. My body was starting to
Mhm.
shut down. So I'm all congested right now. You can hear I'm all congested right now and everything, trying to navigate this. And it's like, yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can feel that coming. I'm like, mm. So now what I do is I make sure to schedule to make myself get adequate rest. Because if not, then
Yeah.
it's just going to completely shut down, and that's no good for anybody. And
Right,
then
right.
especially like with this day, like people listen, people just been dropping dead.
Yes,
Like,
it's true. It's true.
so
Mhm.
like
I'll open
I've
my phone
um,
sometimes and I'll be like, "Dang, really? Damn,
yeah,
really? They gone? They're gone? Really? Damn."
yeah,
Like it's happening. It's scary.
yeah.
Mhm.
And the scariest thing I've heard people say before they pass, like there's a
Mhm.
schoolmate of mine who got like pneumonia, and then he had a heart attack and
Mhm.
died the same day. You know what I mean? And it was
Oh my
like
gosh.
the scariest thing that I've been hearing people say is that they're tired. I'm tired.
Mhm.
And they'll say that like right before they pass. If you tired, sit down, lay
Mhm.
down, whatever it is, it can wait.
Yeah. 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 It's it is really just scary that it could just happen, and it's just, like, out
Yeah,
of nowhere sometimes, and, like, not only because, like, you think to yourself, "Oh, this won't happen to me, or this won't happen to anybody that I know," but then it does, and you're like, "Damn,
yeah.
this is a real thing that happened." Um,
And then the good
I wanna
people too. Why the good people
Yes,
get out of
a
here?
lot of good people. Yep. Mhm. A
I
lot of good
mean,
people.
not to
Mhm.
go, but I'm just like,
Mhm.
okay,
Yep.
you know,
Mhm. I wanna
all right,
I wanna play a little game with you, Chester.
all right,
It's called This or That, right? Because
okay.
I wanna balance your Broadway background with your wellness architect
Oh,
life as well, and your ADHD introvert nature. All right, so
oh,
you're gonna be
uh-oh.
combining all of this. All
Here
right,
we
so
go. Oh, man.
here's the thing. Here, I'm gonna just say this or that, and you just have to answer it like that. No, don't overthink it. Just go
Okay,
with whatever your intuition says. Okay. All right, here we
okay.
go. Number one, Broadway opening night or quiet night in the recording studio.
Quiet night in the recording studio. 1,000%.
Why is that? Tell me more.
I love being in a recording studio. Like, when I would do Broadway shows and stuff, I would
Uh-huh.
oftentimes hang with the people who were in the crew, or just
Mhm.
musicians, or
Yeah.
people who are just actors. The musical theater
Mhm.
people were so doggone extra, I said, "I can't do this
I
24/7."
can't
So
hang out with musical theater people. I can't do it, and I'm a musical theater person. Can't
yeah,
do it. I refuse to hang out with musical theater people. I
yes.
refuse.
I have
Because we are
spent
extra.
many a Broadway check in the studio working on my albums to record
Yeah.
these elaborate albums that went to 200 people. Listen, that's what I did
Listen,
for my peace of mind. I would do a quiet
listen,
night in the studio any day.
that peace of mind is what makes it worth it.
Yeah.
All right, number 2, vegan ice cream or a green smoothie.
Vegan ice cream.
Yeah, that was an easy one. That was an
Yeah,
easy one.
yeah. 'Cause I'm plant-based, right? Mhm.
What's up?
Did you know I'm plant-based?
Yeah, I knew you were I knew you were
Yeah,
vegan,
yeah,
and I
plant-based
like
meat,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, okay, alright, just making sure.
yeah.
Um, Number 3, canceling plans on somebody or having the plans canceled on you.
Having the plans canceled on me.
It makes it easier, doesn't it? Just like
Yeah,
you're like, "Oh, no,
I have
really?
to
Oh,
cancel
dang."
plans, and it gets into all this. people pleasing stuff and all of that, and I'm like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
and I don't wanna disappoint people, and then I wonder if that part of me is performing and all that.
Yeah.
Listen, I will never be mad at you for canceling plans on me. As an introvert, my favorite thing is when you cancel the plans, because now I get to
Yeah.
be by my scheduled time. Well, unscheduled free additional
Yeah.
time to be by myself. Yes.
Well, I'm so sorry that I followed through on our plans today to record. I'm so sorry for not canceling. I'm so sorry. All right, here we go. Number 4, Sweaty Eddie from Sister Act or Berry Gordy from Motown.
Barry Gordy from Motown. Barry
Yeah,
Gordy.
why's that?
Um, though you know, though the music in both shows are great, um, there's just something to the magic of the music of Motown.
Mhm.
And just getting the honor to portray, just such an icon, a legend of our time. He's still with us. He's like
Yeah,
96 years old, still
still
with us
doing his thing.
today.
Yep,
And so
mhm,
just the time that I got with him, the people, the man who was behind discovering Michael Jackson, Diana Ross,
yep,
the Temptations, all of that. So yeah.
mhm. That's fair, that's fair. Number 5, hyper focus at 2 a.m. or a power nap at 2 p.m.
Mm, I would take the hyper focus at 2 a.m.
That's what I would take too. I would take because that's what I usually do. I'm such a night owl.
Yeah, they're neck and neck though. Listen,
Yeah.
and you named the right time too. That power nap at 2 p.m.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it hits
They
right.
say the
It hits
optimal
right.
nap time is 21
Mhm.
minutes.
That's the perfect if you go any longer, it's not the same. It's not you don't feel right
Mm.
afterwards. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So I
I do
do
I
I
do
do it
15
at
minutes.
I set the time. Yeah, I set the timer at that.
Mhm. Yep.
Those power naps be hitting, but I feel
Yes.
like I can get more done at hyper focus at 2 a.m. So I would choose
Same.
that. Yeah,
Same. I get so much done at night. It's so much better.
yeah.
Um, when communicating with somebody, voice notes or long text paragraphs?
I would choose voice notes,
Yeah.
because I do leave voice notes. But
Yeah.
I hate long text paragraphs. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
read that,
Yeah.
but the
You're
voice
gonna
note I
skim.
can.
You're gonna skim.
Yeah, yeah, but the voice note, they have this feature now where you can play it at twice the speed.
Do they really? Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
when you
Oh,
press
my
and
friends
hold
are
it,
in
it'll pop up.
trouble.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
iPhone?
for iPhone, yeah, oh, yeah. I don't know how those
Oh,
Androids work.
I don't know how it works either.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I don't plan on finding out. No idea.
Exactly, right.
Number 7, 90s R&B or 60s soul?
90s R&B.
Mhm.
Now if you
With
would've
with
said 70s
respect,
soul, I would've gone with you on 70s, but
yeah.
90s R&B, I feel like, the all the P.C. Buns, all of that stuff, let's go,
I
like.
miss I like I hate being the person that's like, "Oh, they don't make music like they used to," because I actually like a lot of today's music, I really do. But man, there was just something about like that 90s R&B, like that just
Yeah,
like that aura just doesn't exist anymore, I feel like, especially for black male vocalists. I can't think of a single black male vocalist in today's world that's has a top 10 hit in the last
yeah,
couple of years.
exactly, right. And Gen Z and Gen Alpha would agree too. Like they
Mhm.
don't they listen to a lot of music that's from the
Uh-huh.
90s and before, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so like,
Mhm.
yeah, I
Mhm.
think the 90s, yeah,
I
you
think
always have that
you
was
can
what
even
a time to be
argue
alive. What a
I
time.
know. You
I'm
can
just
even
glad
argue
there was
like
no
early
internet.
2000s, those early 2000s, like Usher, like the when Usher was first coming out, like, come on, man, that like that hit different
Yeah,
too, like
exactly,
112.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Drew Hill. Oh, now I know what I'm gonna be listening to on the way home. Um, number 8, a perfect script or improv?
Perfect script.
Perfect script. I was curious 'cause like that was formulated whether you prefer structure or freedom.
So, it's a hybrid.
Yeah, yeah,
So and I'm curious to know your process too as
yeah.
an actor, right? With me, I will have the directors terrified, right? because all throughout the rehearsal process, I'm kind of just like and kind of like taking in all the information.
Yep. Mhm.
Like, I don't understand actors that come in with all of these choices and things the
Sure.
first day of rehearsal because you
That
don't
doesn't
know
make any
how the other
sense.
person's gonna respond to you. So how do you have
Exactly.
a preconceived response? You're not
Mhm.
listening.
Yes.
So, like, I'm taking in all the information, and then, like, to me, I think the final key is the audience, right? Not that we're
Yes.
playing for the audience, but, like, just
Mhm.
getting the temperature of the room. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
Mhm.
so for me, it doesn't really click until we're into previews. And
Yes.
so
No, that's fair. Mhm.
the directors who already know my work, they're like, "Okay, we know, we get it," but if they don't, they're like, What
Yes.
is this man gonna do anything?" You know what I mean? Like, so, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I grew up Meisner. Like I studied Meisner throughout college, and a lot of that is repetition. A lot of that is like is listening and to the person across from you because you have to. And so I'm the same way. Like I'll like for Bobby, like I had my idea of what I wanted it to be, but if
Yeah.
you were to compare my notes from when I first started to the Bobby that's on stage now, completely different. And to your point, it's because of what the other actors have given me and the flow and the journey of the character. So I've discovered so much um like about myself and like the character based upon what the other actors were giving me and my reaction to what they were giving me. And so I felt like cuz like we didn't have many preview performances, so like I felt like I didn't get my flow until the second weekend. Like
Mhm.
this,
Yep.
I didn't get a feel for it until like we had an audience for about 5 shows, and I was like, okay, all right, I think I
Uh-huh.
get it now. And now my Bobby is great, and I'm like, man, I wish the first weekend people could see my Bobby now
Yes.
because
Yep. You'd be like, "Yes. Oh, I got it." And it's closing night.
yep,
Like,
yep. It's
shit.
like, oh dang, y'all missed out, y'all missed out. Number
And so I do feel
9.
like the perfect
Oh,
script,
sorry.
it
Mhm.
gives you a number of ways that you can, like,
Yes,
kind of play
yes.
within that world. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So, yeah.
and having a good director helps as well, like a director
Woo!
that
Yes.
recognizes that
Yeah.
and can work to somebody's strengths, that's important as well.
Yeah.
Number 9, morning meditation or late night journaling? I think I might know the answer to this one.
Morning meditation.
Oh, I was gonna say late night journaling, but okay, okay.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
morning meditation?
Because that's so the mornings that I do meditate, it makes me feel like that I have, a handle on the day. Like, there's a
Mm,
part of the day that's for me before I
mhm,
pour into everybody else. You know what I mean?
right.
Because, like, so much of what we do is of service to people,
Yes,
right? Even as
yes.
performers, we're providing a service. Performers, content creators, whatever, singers, actors, right? So then before I'm just giving out to people, I'm taking a moment for myself. Um,
Mm,
what I aim to do is like meditation and journal, like both in the morning. Then I find that like my mind is settled and I'm just ready to like begin the day without feeling like I'm catching up. If I don't do that,
mhm.
then the whole day I feel like I'm just behind on
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And last one, um, being understood or being famous?
Being understood.
Yeah, that's the good
Yeah.
answer. That's the good answer. I was like, okay, you better the all the other
Right.
ones there were no right or wrong answers, but this one I'll be like,
Like, oh,
I'm
okay
like,
now, right.
okay.
I'm not gonna judge you, but
No, I think that's important because like because people will say to me, I don't know if it's the same way for you, like because you have a following, like people will say people will we try to stay humble, right? At least like with the amount of people that know us and follow us, and so I'd rather have a people understand where I'm coming from than people recognize me, I guess, if that makes sense. Like just like look
Mhm.
like, oh, that's the vibe of Kai. I'd rather have people be like, that's the vibe of Kai. Oh, he talks about this and he believes in that, blah blah, blah. Like I'd rather that than be like he makes funny videos. Like I like
Right, right.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's funny. You have a quote that you use, which I love. It says, "What is this season asking of me?" Instead of what is wrong with me. It's what is this season asking of me? For the person that's listening right now who is stuck in the what's wrong with me loop right now, what do you think is the first step to flipping that script?
I think so in the group, the Cypher, the group, we talk about the different
Mhm.
phases. We call them moon, earth, and sun. So like if
Mhm.
somebody's in like their moon phase, that's actually the phase of isolation,
Mhm.
of deep reflection, of taking a step back. No. Tell people no.
Mhm.
Sit by yourself and really sit with how you feel and take note as to like what's happening and then see oftentimes it'll happen when there's a pivot, right? So
Mm.
it's like, okay, there's something that just doesn't really resonate with me anymore. You know what I mean? And so like oftentimes we'll hold ourselves to these ideas and ideals that we've had from decades ago. Everything about us has grown, but we still hold ourselves to these ideas, and then they don't really resonate with us. Then we're wondering why we're not achieving those things. So oftentimes it's like just really recalibrating and allowing to like re-examine that and then just say, okay, now what's something I just enjoy doing?
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
so
I wanna I wanna
yeah.
talk about Cypher because, like, I think this is really interesting. You created a space for alignment and reflection. For all of the people that are listening right now that are like, "Okay, what is this Cypher thing?" Can you explain what this community is and how do you structure a community so that it actually refills the cup that you have? So what is Cypher and what is it about?
So the Cypher is our wellness community where we come together and we meet weekly and we share our wins, but also we do like challenges together and things like that. And basically, it's a space that's outside of social media where you can
Mhm.
come to and you know that you're on the same wavelength with people. You have the same common interests and goals, and you know that the people are also rooting for you. And you're also seeing the lessons that we are applying in real time and how they are
Mhm.
unfolding and, allowing people to like reach their highest potential in real time. And so
Yeah.
what was very interesting with that, while I was putting the cipher together, I was also like in the middle of like 4 different workshops I was doing with 3 different zodiac groups. It was like my
Yeah.
Cancers, my Leos, and my Virgos, and then I had this another group called the chessboard, then we're putting together the cipher, and then, I'm dealing with loss at the same time. And so they saw
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
together all these things while navigating a personal moon phase. And in that time,
Mhm.
I had to like just say, I had to ask for help and say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm at a place where I need my community to show up for me. And they did. And I was, so we just have a lot of transparent moments like that. We have like just a great time, and I let people know that I'm not here to inspire you. I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to be your accountability partner to make sure that
Mm.
you're practicing discipline.
Right. Can anybody join it? Like,
Yeah.
how do people become a part of it?
Yeah. So I send you the link, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. So there's the information's on my site, on my website.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it'll
I
also
haven't
be
talked
in the
about it much. I'm terrible at but yeah.
You're supposed to be promoting this.
Right,
Supposed to
right.
be
Yeah,
promoting
yeah, yeah.
this.
Oh my God. My team is gonna see this and be like, "Oh, Chester," they're like like,
The link will be in the show notes here, so all people have to
yes,
do is
we'll
go
have the
into and
link. We'll have
it'll
the link.
all be there.
Come and join us. So like there and we have a few people that like some of my friends do wellness communities that are with the physical part, which is about like
Yeah,
making sure you take your supplements and things like that, right? This part helps you check in mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So we have
yeah,
meditations, have a library of over 70 courses that I put. Listen, we put a lot of work into this thing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah, I'm sure.
in that there's always a hub for people to go to and recharge,
Right.
recalibrate. Yeah.
Right, and there's a lot of people that are creative that are listeners and watchers, and so you're also releasing a music project called Equinox, right? Tell us about that.
Yes. Yes. So Retrograde, my first music project under the name Chess, collectively healing every single soul, was about the healing process, about the isolation process, about really examining what went wrong in relationships,
Mhm,
diving into the dark to find the light. So now that was that, right? And that's the moon phase, right? And now equinox goes into the phase of when you are discovering balance and you're ready
Mm,
to think outside of yourself and really ready to build those relationships. So that's what that's about.
I love that. I love
Little
that.
love album, you know?
Yeah, and there's going to be information about all this stuff. And like all, and like Chester's what do you call it, website is going to be in all of that, so you can get all the information there. So for everyone that's listening or watching right now, they're like, I like this Chester guy. All of the information of everything that he is offering is going to be in the show notes of this podcast. So all you have to do is click, and there's going to be a lot of good things. And like, if anything, just go check him out. If he's in your town performing, get yourself a ticket. Go see this man sang. He doesn't sing. He sangs. S-A-N-G. He sangs. Go see this man because you are not going to be disappointed. When are you coming back to the East Coast? Are you on the East Coast now? Where are you now? In LA?
Yeah, I'm in LA right now. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
going back and forth between Rochester, Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just back and forth. Just
Jet setting. Jet
yeah,
setting.
yeah.
Yes.
Like,
Well, you gotta come to Philly too. You gotta come to Philly. Don't forget about us Philly
absolutely. I love
people.
Philly.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
don't forget
Got to
about
take you to
us.
all the vegan restaurants out there.
There's a lot of them in Philly. So
Hmm.
you got to come check it out.
Charlie was a
Chester,
center.
the what?
It's called Charlie was a center.
I thought you said Charlie Wilson's Center, as in like I'm thinking of like the singer Charlie Wilson.
Right.
My name is Charlie
You dropped the
Charlie
bomb on
Wilson,
me. Right.
and I'm like Charlie Wilson.
Like, what the
He has
hell?
a
Right.
restaurant. He has a vegan restaurant in Philly.
Right.
I was like, damn, I didn't know that. Um, uh, what is one thing? This is the final question that I always ask all my guests. If the audience can take away one thing from this interview today, what should that one thing be?
If the audience could take away one thing from this interview today, what would that one thing be? That these two people care about the work that they're doing to affect the world in a positive way, just to make somebody else's life better.
I love that. I love that. Look at that. That is how you end an episode, my friend Chester. Thank you for hanging out on the vibe today.
Experts unite separately in our homes. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Let's go. That conversation truly shifted my perspective. Man, Chester has such a grounded, honest way of looking at the world. The biggest takeaway for me was his thought process on grief and burnout and resting. When he talked about how high functioning often just means that you're ignoring your body shutting down, that hit me right in the chest. It is a powerful reminder that we have to intentionally slow down before our bodies force us to. Please make sure you check out the show notes right now. I have linked all of Chester's information, including how to join his wellness community, the Cypher, and where to listen to his new music project, Equinox. Another huge thank you to Sucre Bay for presenting this episode. Don't forget to grab your bottle of our collaboration fragrance. It's called Why Did I Walk Into This Room? You can get that by visiting sucrebay.com. If you are looking for even more free resources, head on over to thevibewithkai.com, where you can read my free blog or check out my entire podcast archive or join my free email list. And if you want to take things to the next level, join the ADHD Vibers Hub on Patreon or Facebook for just $5 a month. That subscription will get you exclusive access to my Reverse the Mic hot seat segments that I do with all of my podcast guests. It also gets you access to the ADHD deep dive library that I have, and you get access to those private behind the scenes looks at my life and my mental health journey that I don't post anywhere else. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you're following me at The Vibe with Kai on all of your favorite social media platforms, and make sure you're leaving a review and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it today. Once again, thank you so much for watching and for listening. As always, my friends, much love, good vibes. I'll catch you next time. Bye.